but I'm not hearing the audio. I think he forgot about that.
I got it. We'll start again. One sec.
Okay.
Routing error.
It happened. Greetings, you've landed at the VUC, IP Communications and VoIP community. We would like to thank Simwood.com for their support. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is from onsip.com, and you can go to getonsip.com for a URL people can click to call you. We've been privileged over the last 5 years to be using the best conference bridge on the planet. Yes, I'm talking about zipdx.com, full color, full featured, full HD conference bridge. Our website, vuc.me on the webs, hosted by bluehost.com. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are from voxbone.com. And here we are with VUC 516. What day are we? 21st of November, 2014. And the first order of business, let's say hello to Saul, who's coming from Amsterdam, I think, or Holland anyway, before we get too much further.
Yeah. Hey, Randy. Thanks for having me.
How you doing? You moved your microphone closer, but it could be a little bit closer yet, I think.
I think it should be good.
Okay, so Adrian is going to call us on Blink, and we're watching my screen as soon as I get rid of, I have a million different, no, the opposite, get rid of all this. There we go, okay. So Adrian, if you're hearing me on ZipDX, now is the time to call, and there it is, you can see everybody.
Video call from Adrian Georgescu.
There you go. Oh, you can't see it because it's over here. There we go. Okay, I'm going to accept that call. And here's Adrian.
Hello.
Hello,
that? Randy. How are you?
Okay, we got some artifacts, and I always like to remind people that what you're seeing is a screen capture from me. I'm going to confirm, Adrian. Shall I?
Right. It's actually one of the topics today that I wanted to highlight. So we started a video session, and as soon as we started, there is this dialogue where you have to confirm a string, authentication string. And the purpose of this is to allow the two of us to negotiate a secure channel for the purpose of having a private conversation that is using encryption. And it's an end-to-end mechanism called ZRTP that makes this possible. And that authentication string presented on your screen should correspond with mine. And I can read it out loud to you, and you can confirm it's the same. Delta Terra 19.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and confirm, noting that because we have visible the little red lock. So when
as a result of this confirmation, the lock turned. The lock in the title bar of the video window turned green, and that means now, at this very moment, we have established a secure channel, secure in a very different way than a typical secured call, in the sense that it's end-to-end encrypted.
Mm-hmm.
So intermediate in the internet, whether the server or the ISP or anyone in the path between the in the path of the packets we exchange. Nobody can actually decrypt this conversation without having access to both of our computers, actually.
Right. And I've got Ole Johansson working feverishly from Stockholm, trying to decrypt it right now. But he tells me
I have no doubt.
he tells me that he has not been able to crack it yet. Adrian, I don't think I finished the sentence because we were so excited to be doing this today in this dangerous demo. The point is that this is a screen capture, so there were some artifacts a few minutes ago. They're coming back a little bit. This is not necessarily the fault of the. Adrian's on LTE, right? Or are you?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm in a outside on a field, and I'm using LTE, which is a mobile technology. Do you copy me?
Yeah, and it does occasionally come on and off, and there are packets being dropped and so on. Anyway, so as you mentioned, latest features of Blink being related to privacy. this is pretty much what we're talking about here. If we're totally encrypted, that's privacy.
Let me join the Hangouts. Is this a good idea?
Yeah, I think we're done here unless we want to chat and so on. But I think people can kind of imagine how this all works. Let's go back to Hangout, and we got Saul, Michael.
Hang up and join Hangout.
Right, and we've got Saul and James and everybody. So, okay. So we're going to kill this here. I should maybe click this real quick to show you. Move this over here. We have a whole interesting statistics display. One of the nice things about Blink, you've got all this information here, and you can see some of the dropouts, I think, or maybe that's on my end. I don't know. Anyway, that's.
Can I be dangerous before you switch it? What happens if I press that button?
I'll accept it, and we'll see what happens. Oh, I didn't let it announce itself, though. Try again.
Hello, I joined the Hangouts. Do you guys copy me?
Yes, we do.
Yep. There he is.
Get me busy.
All right. So, did you manage to get a glimpse on the window presented by Blink with the confirmation dialog? Or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had that. We had that. The thing is, sometimes the windows come up. I've got two screens, so when James called just now, call again, James. Now that Adrian's, we're all synchronized here, we can hear each other. So here's what happens.
Audio call from James Body.
James Body. I don't know what to do with James Body personally, but you have the chance of telling him he's busy. Okay. So,
You busied me.
well, because we can always do that again. But anyway.
That's good. I've got a question for Adrian.
Do you guys get my video?
We
No.
dropped for a second, but I have it now.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I see the tree.
Okay, because I don't see myself in the thumbnails. It's not okay.
No, we
Well,
can
that
we can
happens.
see your tree.
We've got the tree.
Down, so we can.
All
see-
right. Oh, that's me on the right. Sorry, I was watching some trees. I didn't know it's me.
Yeah, you're the tree.
That's your tree. Turn your camera.
Right.
There we go.
Much better.
Go ahead, James. You had a question?
Yeah, I'm really impressed with your implementation of ZRTP. It's really cool. But is it compatible with a ZRTP in the Jitsi client? So can you work Jitsi to Blink?
Yes, it is interoperable with. We tried several clients. Jitsi is one of them. We tried Zoiper. We tried C-Zip Simple. I think we have 4 or 5 success stories about interoperability, and also we had with Phil Zimmerman some test calls with his client, and it worked.
Well, that's good.
So it's an amazingly interoperable, this little encryption tool, which is quite unique in the SIP industry, to have a solution that suddenly just works everywhere.
Well, I'm quite impressed because we only downloaded the application about 15 minutes ago, and immediately we've got it all working, and it's all very comfortable. Everything works just the way you would expect it to.
Right. So we took a different approach on. We want to make it easy and by default. One of the Randy, I will get into the story of it if I may.
Sure, absolutely.
How we ended up doing it. So we have learned from a while ago from Snowden revelations that there is a blanket interception program in place, operated by several intelligence agencies in several countries, and this should worry the hell out of every person that find himself herself the target of such interception. And why? For those who do not fully understand why this is bad, I can give you some context. So, for instance, I'm born in Romania, which at that time was a communist country. We had an authoritarian regime, and it was a police state where every single citizen was subject to interception. With less modern means than today, but nevertheless, everything you did was potentially reported and stored in a database. And what is the problem with this is that this information learned about you was finally used against you, and even worse, the information learned about your parents was later used in the future against their children. Basically, bureaucrats having access to this database of indiscriminate data collected over time, these bureaucrats may arbitrarily decide in the future, based on this data they collected, that certain things that done in the past may, for instance, become a criminal offense in the future. And they had the ultimate power, being bureaucrats, to rewrite any law or decide anything they want. So you could find yourself being guilty for something done in the past, not even by yourself, but by your family, and that information will be used against you down the line. So for this reason, no reason can be actually be considered valid to introduce or support such mass interception system. So if you see how perception about this was before Snowden revelations and how it is now, it's a major change in the way people think about it. I'm talking about people who are actually deploying these solutions like our company, real-time communication solutions. In the past, the software was, most of the software out there was by default basically not even trying to use any privacy means or encryption or anything like this. It was always an exercise left for the specialists or for the end users to enable, download, do something, which of course implies that they understand everything related to this, which is of course not the case. Many people don't know, don't understand, and it's not their problem even to have to understand this. And since these revelations in our industry, immediately I could notice, not just me, but other people I know and other companies we know, that immediately thought, wait a second, this is wrong. We have created software for many years that allows, through its implementation and the approach on how these privacy things are realized, we allowed actually this to happen. So there is no reason technically that you shouldn't actually turn it upside down and realize that you can have encrypted communications by default, meaning your email can be by default encrypted, and you can, for those users who really don't want it or don't care or they want to disable it, they should do some extra effort to disable that feature rather than enabling that feature. And today you have all the primitives to secure almost all the means of real-time communication, that is offline, instant messaging, audio and video, and practically these are the most common used things. And then of course you have other media types. But what people do today on a daily basis at their office or in their private lives, writing chat messages one to another, or having an audio call, having this data dumped indiscriminately in databases stored by God knows who, somewhere outside of your jurisdiction or your country, should worry everyone. And we actually wanted to do something about this. We cannot change the world, but we can at least make our client Blink better with respect to these privacy features. That is the context. Hope it was a good context.
That was pretty comprehensive, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I was muted, so I couldn't comment on it. Just a note in passing that Zoa's here in IRC. Hey, Zoa, I hope assume you're listening someplace. And I reached out to Emil because somebody mentioned it, and Tim Patton's with us. I think he's still here. Yeah. So everybody's being really cool and muted, which is great.
So do I have to ask another question then?
You could.
Feel free, yes. We are in interactive mode. I'm all yours.
Yeah,
but give me 1 second. Let me first announce something. I'm very proud because
big announcement.
Just this to announce, and then after this announcement, I'm yours. So Blink celebrates in December 1st 4 years of existence, and today we launched version 1.0 after 4 years of development. For Linux, we launched Blink for Linux with video support, and this announcement went through our mailing list and is available on the website. But everyone who wanted to have a decent client on Linux, a SIP client on Linux, and now I think they cannot say we don't have a decent client on Linux anymore, because we support most of the media that people use today, and it's working and it's available for download today for Debian and Ubuntu systems as a free package. Anyone can download it, install it, and hopefully they can provide more feedback to make it better in the future. So this is the announcement we had for today.
I have a question about Blink Pro, Adrian, which is it's the OS 10 version. The Mac version is available on the App Store, which is
correct.
But what about the other? Now you mentioned Linux version. A lot of people use Windows, alas. And for that version, where do they get? Can they get Blink Pro? And if so,
right. For each operating system, we have a build that runs on that operating system, and there are variations. So they're not all equal. So the Mac experience is almost the same as on Linux, and on Windows is yet a bit different, but they share the same commonality or the same core. But the interaction depends on each OS, so there are differences. And if you have a Windows system, you have to download Blink version for Windows, and you do this in the case of OS X, you go through the App Store, and in the case of Windows, you go to our website, which is http://icanblink.com, and there you go to the download link, and you should find instructions to download Blink for Windows. It's just one-click download.
But is the download the same for Blink and Blink Pro, or what?
No, Blink for Windows is downloadable from our website. We hosted it.
It's not called Blink.
No, Blink Pro is only for Mac.
Okay, that's.
Whereas for Windows, we call it Blink for Windows or Blink Qt because of the toolkit used for the graphical user interface, which is different than on Mac, which is called Cocoa. So we have two versions: Blink for Mac and Blink for Windows and Linux share the same code, so they are the same. They look the same, they act the same. But on Mac, it's a different code base.
Got it. Okay. And again, that's icanblink.com. Pretty easy to spell.
Correct.
Here's a question, because James didn't ask his. I'm not sure. For someone who's deploying Blink in their network, what kind of server support does it need? Does it work with any SIP server?
Right. So indeed, most of our users use Blink to have audio calls, and for this reason, they call it a soft phone. However, we never advertise it as such, because from day one, when we launched Blink back in 2010, it supported more than audio. You could do chat, you could do file transfer. For this reason, we didn't call it a soft phone, because it's not a phone. It's a SIP client which allows multiple media, and we had multiple media. In order to have all this media working, Blink is a client, and it requires a server. The server needs to have some features in order to facilitate, first of all, the rendezvous between the endpoints, and secondly, to facilitate the media flow between the endpoints. And practically, we're talking about NAT traversal in particular. This requires a capability on the server side to allow the packets from two computers that are located behind NAT to somehow exchange packets. And this is done through a third party, which is the SIP server, or something that works in tandem with the SIP server, realizing this media relay function. And as well, other features related to non-voice communication, let's say presence, requires presence agent functionality, it's called, which is standardized SIP functionality. The SIP server has to support it, otherwise you cannot subscribe to the present state of other SIP users, and you cannot store a buddy list, you cannot configure this policy like, I would like to show my status to Randy, and I would like to hide my status to James because he's very curious where I am every time.
I know where you are.
So these features require specific support in the SIP server infrastructure, and not all servers out there are able to support all these things. So Blink would work audio-wise, I guess, with almost every server out there, but for the rest of the features you will need something more specialized that has all the server-side capabilities of Blink. And for presence, we're talking about OpenSIP's SIP server. Namely, the presence agent of OpenSIPs is designed and crafted to work with all presence features of Blink. And in order to have chat or file transfer or screen sharing, you require MSRP NAT traversal capability in the form of an MSRP relay, which we also, it's a server we wrote, we put it in a public domain. It could potentially be used in combination with any SIP server, but whomever deploys SIP service has to take into account this component if they want to use Blink under their own infrastructure. Same for the presence capability. OpenSIPs, I mentioned, the server that facilitates the presence notifications. It works in tandem with something called an XCAP server. This server is designed to store all these body lists and the presence policy for each contact that you add to your body list. So OpenXCAP is another example of a component that you need to deploy or something that fulfills the same role. These are components we're familiar with and we worked on them. There may be others, but you need to consider beyond SIP several components on the server side if you want to use Blink to its full capacity.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? I have a list here, but Tim mentioned. So
congratulations on the 1.0 status. That's a milestone, and
thank you.
I had a question about the Linux build. The usual question I ask everyone: Does it build on the Raspberry Pi? Is there a Pi version?
Oh, we have a specialist here with experience in both Linux and Raspberry Pi.
Hey Tim, so here. Hey. Actually, yes, it does build. So, not sure if you saw that thing I did a couple of times at a couple of conferences. I developed a hardware phone on top of the Raspberry Pi with this SDK. So yeah, everything actually works.
So how do you get on with the video camera? Because I don't think.
Well, I didn't try the video camera just yet, and because everything is done in software at the moment, I don't think it would be powerful enough to do something.
Yeah, I saw they'd done some exposure of the codec hardware somehow, but I didn't really know if it was something you could get at easily or what.
No, I so far, like audio and all the other media types work nicely. So the whole core of it compiles and runs on the Raspberry Pi. Video I haven't even attempted yet. So.
Okay. Well, maybe for 2.0.
Yeah, no, it's indeed a thing I would like to do, but unless there is some hardware accelerated thing that does half of the job, I'm not sure how we would do it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Anybody else? James, did you say something?
Yeah, I had a question about, well, not a question, it's more a comment really, about one of the great strengths of a Blink that is reasonably unique is its sort of multi-party conferencing, and in particular, all the stuff that you do with MSRP. So would you like to spend a couple of minutes just telling us about what you've done and the support for multi-party conferencing that you've built into Blink?
Great point.
Yeah, Saul, I think, can explain as good as me, but I will let him.
Well, when the MSRP stack in Blink was developed very early on, actually, the MSRP library was there even before I arrived 5 years ago. And that could do the chat part. And one of the ways to actually test this was there was these, I think we called it SIP, MSRP chat server it was called. It was like a prototype MSRP switch implementation. And this was conforming to an actual standard, which is still in draft state, but it's awaiting a number as far as an RFC number as far as I know. Draft IETF simple chat, which actually gave you these instructions on how to do multi-party chat. Now, at some point in time, we had to rewrite that server because it was written with a very old API of our own SDK. So I sit down to rewrite it, and I thought it was going to be a very long task because, well, you know, the whole thing. But because we had added so many things to the SDK already, I could do it in like 2 days. And then starting from there, we renamed it to Silk Server, and we started building things on top. So we started with chat, then adding audio to it was very easy. And then we started adding more things like participants' information. So participants' information is actually another standard thing. It's in RLC 4575. And I think I actually saw Emil joining, and Emil uses the same standard over XMPP. And another thing we later on added to Silk Server was XMPP gateway support. And we have an interoperable way of actually having a conversation on a group chat between SIP and XMPP, both sharing participants' information. Now, once you have a list of participants, you also want to invite more people, and there's also a standard for that. And we implemented, there are many options on how to do this. We use one of them, which sounds pretty much like a call transfer. You instruct the server, please bring this person in, and then the server actually sends out a SIP invite to this person and brings it in. So basically, we took all the media capability we had and made it multi-party aware. We actually added file transfer support too. It works the following way: if you're in a conference, you see in the drawer in Blink, you see all those participants. But if you drop a file, we upload the file and the room keeps it. And then you will see the files there in a separate part of the list. Like, these files are available and you can actually request them. So all this is built on top of standards. And we actually know that at least FreeSwitch announced that they are doing the inviting participants, and the participants list, they are actually doing it using the same mechanism as we did. And actually, when Tony announced it, he was using Blink to demo it. So this is all the standard mechanisms. However, a lot of these VoIP industries are still in the telecom, the old days. So these features take time to be
right, so Emil went and implemented a lot of these cool features in an XMPP client, or he took the XMPP approach, because a lot of the building blocks that today we take for granted and they work and we have them there, they were not there years ago, and you had to make a choice. And our choice was to stick with SIP because we had some experience with the servers. Emil went and built a lot of cool features by using XMPP servers. And the interesting thing...
We actually implemented it both in XMPP and SIP and Jitsi.
Hi, Emil. So,
hey, Adrian.
Of course, we're looking at details, so they almost work, but I'm referring to the SIP simple part, which is not available in Jitsi. So you do have messaging, but you use signaling for that, not MSRP media. So the messaging part and the multi-party chat is based on XMPP practically, isn't it?
The multi-party chat indeed is only supported in XMPP. We
Right,
don't support
so
MSRP, but I was referring to the conferencing part, which is indeed the a protocol that we've looked a lot into, the RFC 4575 that
right,
Saul
that's
mentioned.
That's
That
common
is,
between both worlds, and it interops. I'm very happy that it was such an easy interoperability success, let's say. And did I say something wrong about the approach you took? Because most of the multi-party features are XMPP based in your client.
Yeah.
So the interesting part is that you can see that there is a one-to-one matching between what SIP and XMPP, how they work actually. And we were able to craft this gateway because there was this commonality, and we identify what is this commonality. And right now there is an IETF working group that works on defining these specifications, and Saul and Emil are working together to finalize these documents together with other people from like XMPP Foundation. And this is a great teamwork, and the results are amazing because you can see them at every conference. You can see the interop rate, you can see it works, it's easy to use, people love it. So it was a very great experience and very positive to develop this multi-party capability, because very often in the industry you have competing parties trying to prove the other party that they are wrong or right, and a lot of friction. But with this multi-party interoperability, everyone was like, we only got like positive experience, and everyone was kind of, I don't know any negative vibe around the whole work and ecosystem of all those people who work together to realize this multi-party capability. It was an amazing, and still it's not finished, but it's an amazing experience to work in this area.
Yeah, without a doubt, cooperation is the way to go.
Hold on a second. We have a little interruption here.
There are more girls coming.
Yes, not only that, but we need to sing happy birthday. I don't know how we're going to do this, but let's try it. Synchronized. That's Yana. Hi, Yana. How are you?
Hello.
Mommy Yana.
I have no idea how this is going to work if we're not synchronized, but ready? Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Yana.
Happy birthday to you. Was I the only one singing then?
Yes.
The best happy birthday I've ever heard.
It's great to see you. You guys go out and have a drink on me.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, Yana. It's great to see you.
It's always great to see you, too.
This offer not valid in states that do not accept birthday promises. Okay, so with that little interruption to blink, we blinked. Let's face it, we blinked.
So I got another question, Adrian.
Oh, you do. Okay.
Yeah. What else does Blink have that the other clients don't have? So you've got 45 seconds to plug in Blink Pro.
If it's about SIP, I think we stopped comparing, but I think we implemented all media standardized in SIP Simple Working Group, meaning stuff beyond VoIP, presence, file transfer, chat. There are many clients that advertise SIP Simple capability. However, if you zoom into the internals, they don't really use those standards. So we practically implemented those standards. I'm not sure there is other SIP client with the same capability in the sense of practically MSRP support. That MSRP practically allows two SIP clients to exchange reliably data over like a TCP pipe. And basically, sky's the limit. What can you do with that? Just to give you an example, what you can do with MSRP, because it was a standard as a media transport, but once you have it in place, you can move arbitrary data over that connection. It works like email. You have a channel of communication. You have reliable confirmations. You know for each message that you send that it was received. So you have reports about delivery for every single packet. And this allows you to make reliable applications that require reliable transport, which, for instance, RTP used for audio and video is not. There is no guaranteed delivery for RTP, but for MSRP there is. And with this mechanism, then you can do other applications very easily on top of it. For instance, we did screen sharing. A student from University of Amsterdam basically reused our stack and wrote screen sharing in 3 weeks, which I think it was an amazing achievement, starting from nothing, suddenly to have a complete new useful media type like screen sharing, and that was very early in 2010. Now, another interesting development, just 1 week ago, another guy, which is working on in a complete different area in there is this standardization going on around open document format that should replace all this proprietary Microsoft and all these things which are not like in the open source domain, or they're not in an open standard way. There is this initiative to standardize rich, how to describe the content of a rich document, and not only that, but also how to modify API-wise, how to create primitives so that you can have such editing capability in third-party apps. And the developer of that was able to use Blink to actually have multi-party collaborative editing, which is practically, I saw it working, it ran on my laptop. I can't show it to you right now, but you're able to have like a Microsoft Word type of experience, and you're able to do it in real time with conflict management and everything. The whole thing was strictly separated from our client, and MSRP, the connection to MSRP was like 1 hour of work. You could plump an external application on top of MSRP transport, so you could create a complete new interactive way of communicating with somebody else, meaning collaborative editing. You could add this on top of MSRP with very little incremental effort, as this guy proved, had no idea about how SIP works. He just focused on his app, looked at our API, which allows you to create a new type of data stream based on MSRP, and you say, I want to have a negotiated an MSRP stream, and over this stream I will exchange my type of data I care about. Like you describe it as a MIME type, application slash, I don't know, ODF, XML editing. And once you set up the stream, then our stack delivers the messages to your application, and you can concentrate on building your application without having to understand the mechanics of SIP, MSRP, or anything like this. So it's an amazing, versatile media type, this MSRP, that many didn't look at it, but we're amazed by its capabilities and its flexibility, and it's perfectly interoperable, and it works amazingly well. Very little issues are discovered implementing MSRP as compared to, let's say, implementing an audio call and all the complexity that arises from audio and video and so forth. With MSRP, is a very straightforward exercise. And the benefits are tremendous, because if you look at our clients right now, typically, as I said, it's not a soft phone, and all these features that are so cool, multi-party conferencing, screen sharing, chat, file transfer, they all use MSRP. So if you want to make something beyond VoIP, you have to look at MSRP as a first step if you want to go beyond this audio-only capability. So compared to other SIP clients, we are far ahead because we invested long time in this MSRP capability. And I hope others will come, because it's nothing, you know, difficult, but somehow it was not the focus of many developers out there.
Yeah, crikey, that was quite a comprehensive summary of why MSRP.
Adrian, you are the greatest guest. You really are. We talked about link.
Not so many nice people in this room.
Have we compared to Link yet? I had to run away to turn the pizza off.
Well, no, there's something else I was going to bring up. You haven't, being the kind of modest sort of person you are, Adrian, you haven't said anything about the contact management directory services stuff, which is pretty unique to Blink again. So you've got your LDAP synchronization, for example, and a few other bits and pieces.
Right. These are things that could be common to any client. It doesn't kind of change too much. It's like a GUI interaction, or if you want to do a lookup, basically it has nothing to do with SIP in the end or MSRP. These are like integration with third-party databases. You can look up a person, and these things can be added, you know, pretty easy without having to know the real-time aspect of the client. But as always, it requires a lot of effort, and it's very complex. If you look at a real-time communications client, most of the time to add a new feature, it crosses different disciplines: signaling, media, directories. For this reason, we haven't seen, even our client is developed in open source model, we haven't seen too many, let's say, additions to it or third-party contributions. Actually, I don't know how Jitsi, how often did they see contributions that were fully functional, working, and not simple patches. Emil?
I'd say that somewhere around between 5 and 15% of the code is contributed by other people. And sometimes it was very big things. Sometimes it's only just bug reports. But yeah, I mean, it's how often did you hire someone to work and they started producing valuable working code right from the start? It's integrating a community member is just much like integrating an employee in any team. And we do have contributors currently that are regular contributors that do not that have gone through the process of learning the entire project and are contributing valuable code that doesn't need any modifications, that have become experts in the code base, just like any of the traditional developers. So it's it's something that is. I agree. It's not a given. People are not going to jump on your code just because you published it. I totally agree with that. It takes effort, but it is worth it.
Ole is with us. I don't know if he heard me talking about him or if he just jumped in from London. Hey, how you doing? Oh, now he's muted. You weren't muted before when you were talking to somebody else.
Now I'm muted. Sorry.
Hey, Ole, by the way. I had a question for Adrian. I think you guys are. I totally think that you're right in terms of MSRP support. You are the only client that I know that supports that, and that's, I think, a very courageous investment. It has allowed you to come up with a very nicely integrated solution. How are you seeing that today when you have WebRTC and data channels? Kind of bring you the same capabilities. Are you worried about that? Are you thinking of potentially integrating data channels as an alternative transport to MSRP? Or what's your take on that?
That's a very good question, and my personal experience with this is the way I look at WebRTC. I don't feel it's a replacement for anything out there. It's a new way to how do you say? It's a new type of last mile. That's the way I perceive WebRTC. So looking at an infrastructure that provides a service, whether it's SIP or XMPP, WebRTC it's another way to get in a simple way. Let's say how this Hangouts is. You open a web browser, you have a link, you get in. But everything behind that, it has to be based on standards. Otherwise, you're in a closed island, and that would work fine for a dedicated application. Let's say you're a client of a bank, and you have the context, which is like signaling. You are logged into the website, and you can enhance the communication. Escalate to a real-time session, let's say with a support person, instead of making a stupid phone call and identifying yourself to the bank. You're already logged in, you have all this context. It's an excellent application for WebRTC working in that little island. But I'm looking at interoperability and global large-scale communications, which imply interoperability and getting in and out of your little island. And there is no way on earth this WebRTC can form any base of having, first of all, meaningful addressing, which you already have in the form of user at domain for email, SIP, XMPP. And as far as I know, in WebRTC, they even try to standardize a signaling protocol. It's just media. So for this reason, from our work, from our perspective, the place where we see WebRTC a great addition to our, let's say, roadmap is, for instance, in Silk Server, where we have multi-party, multimedia capabilities. So multi-party, multimedia, and multi-protocol. Adding WebRTC support for that would be a very useful thing. For instance, to create multi-party conferencing across any kind of leg, SIP, XMPP, or WebRTC.
Right, I totally agree with that. But let me put it another way. Indeed, you're right. There's no signaling for WebRTC, which means that there could be any signaling of your choice, including SIP. So if you were to do Blink for web today, for example, you can redo pretty much everything with WebRTC. and you would have a working data channel to use as your reliable transport, data transport, like you do with MSRP. And you won't have to, that won't cost you any effort because it's already there. So how about, what do you think about, for example, adding to Silk Server a way of establishing SCTP legs in addition to MSRP legs so that you could have WebRTC
that's what I
endpoints
mean,
running this?
but that's the place where I would do it. So I don't see WebRTC as a standalone client because, of course, it lacks all the primitives to be a standalone client. So it is a way to join something that exists using a different media type, which is the browser audio-video capability. But rewriting, let's say, Blink in a WebRTC model, if I look inside the code, our client is abstract. It talks using a communication bus, using a notification system. Everything you see, the GUI, all the things that happen are not connected to C protocol at any level, basically. It's in our SDK that performs all that. So theoretically, of course, it will require resources. I could dump simple client SDK in, and I would be able to use XMPP or whatever else because our work is decoupled from the mechanics underneath. We have primitives like for messaging, which are common across these protocols, like send a message, receive a message, get a confirmation, which are pretty abstract. We use SIP, and you can see word SIP in all those primitives. But if you look at how they work, there is no much difference between how XMPP works. At the API level, you have the same primitives. Start an audio call, put it on hold, terminate it. And if you want to rewrite everything to use, let's say, WebRTC, theoretically it's perfectly possible. At the same time, I wouldn't see any purpose of doing it. The only reason it would make sense is, let's say, everyone moves towards web. All these computers suddenly don't have an OS anymore, but just a web browser. Then you're out of business. You are forced to rewrite your apps to be loadable in a browser or use a WebRTC sort of methodology to be able to run at all. But again, and here you have this aspect, does it run in a browser or just is using WebRTC as a standalone base? Because you can have a toolkit that allows you to, it's like, you have a Cocoa toolkit, you can have a WebRTC toolkit, which gives you, let's say, a native web view on the OS, and you can make an app inside it.
Oh, totally.
So,
when I was saying WebRTC, I didn't mean browsers. I meant basically things doing DTLS, SRDP, and ICE, and
certainly
SCTP.
it saves a lot of time for a developer to have to go through. So you already have a media channel with a lot of primitives that in a SIP or an XMPP client, many have spent years developing all this plumbing that you could take for granted if you use those toolkits from, I don't know who. Oh, by the way, Google called their engine Blink. You know that? No. The WebRTC rendering of Saul, you know more about it.
The WebKit fork is now called Blink. Funny enough.
There was a long discussion we had before, actually, the Snowden revelations on when Google announced that project. It was like, if you see how many people chipped in there in that discussion, in that thread, tens of people said, "This is wrong, man. There is another software using, same concept, same purpose, same everything, and it's a major collision of identity." And well, it's not really, in the end, they didn't make it like front news or something. But it's funny enough that the WebRTC toolkit of Google is called Blink nowadays.
Yeah, if you look for a thing called Blink that can do opposite video, you end up with two things.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to reply to Emil too. My take is that actually in the WebRTC context, the data channel kind of replaces MSRP, at least in that island, because it gives you the same as in a message boundary-based communication channel between the two endpoints, which is actually negotiated within the session. Last time I checked, I believe that neither Chrome nor Firefox were still able to do add and remove SDP streams and be nice about it.
Well, I think it's a legitimate question of Emil, because that capability that today you can, if you want that capability, you have to invest as we did in MSRP, or looking at something more modern like WebRTC, these sockets. So it's a valid question. Which
No, I'm not saying it's not valid. My point is that it has been attempted in the past, and there is a draft, for example, that I'm not sure what state it's in, which specifies how the WebSocket transport for MSRP, which is also another valid scenario to try to reach MSRP from another angle. But I think that the problem with that is that it's disconnected from whatever your session is. MSRP is tied to the media plane for the better or the worse. It has its sets of advantages and problems. But when I have a call with audio and chat, both streams are correlated because they belong to the same session. And the fact that WebRTC did the same, for the better or the worse, makes it map one-to-one. So you want to send a file, you want to send a chat, you could do it over an audio plus a data channel. And ideally, something in the middle, like that's something for us, probably being Silk Server, would be the entity where we would need to speak data channel so that we can convert that to an MSRP stream and convert an audio plus data channel call that enters the edge of our infrastructure through Silk Server, because the other guy is a browser, into an audio plus chat call. We reply in a Blink instance in a desktop, let's say.
Yeah, this integration there are a lot of details here. If you look at XMPP, for instance, I was using Jitsi to do multi-party multimedia conferencing, and you see that there is a major difference between, you realize those two things. So you can't, it's very hard to integrate them together. You have to start a chat session, and then you have to start an audio call, but then you're required to have the entry in your buddy list. You cannot start an arbitrary session to somebody unless it's in your roster, and you can't get to a click experience to, let's say I have a URL, an XMPP URL, you click on it and there you are with audio and chat, right? You can't start it like this. Even theoretically it should be possible.
I don't want to make this about Jitsi because this is a Blink session, but that's what Jitsi Meet does actually in XMPP.
Okay, right. So you have a solution that in the end you had to do it yourself because there was the standards or the building blocks out there cannot do it. So you had to innovate around it.
But so had you. I mean, you were the first implementers of MSRP, so that puts you in an innovator's position anyway.
Well, actually innovating in the sense that you created something that didn't exist at all before. So you talk about Colibri, right?
No, not Colibri, because Colibri is just the interface to the bridge. It's really just Jingo in a multi-user chat.
Mm-hmm. So it would be interesting to see if it's possible to have video multi-party in the future. I'm really curious about this.
Yeah, that's what we do with Jitsi Meet, actually. But again, I'm sorry, I don't want to subvert the session. But what would be interesting is to have Blink clients join Jitsi Meet web conferences. So that would be...
I'm very interested in reusing your mixing mixing between codes capability, and try to see how we can come from two different worlds and mix.
Yeah, I've been running after you about this for ages now. I've been waiting for you to add videos so that I can start.
Exactly, it takes time to have all these things.
That's right. We've all been waiting for this, Adrian. What took you so long?
Well, some things take time, and it's not just it's the road to something, not the end. It's like if I would have done it too quick, I would have not traveled around the world for 5 years.
Yep, that's a good explanation.
So
then we need to be here to tell you about it and everything. So.
Right, but that would be a great way to collaborate. I think that would be awesome, it would prove once again how technologies can interoperate when they're built properly, and how projects that started entirely separately can actually build stuff together and be building blocks of a bigger system. That would be a great thing to do.
Yeah.
We look forward to doing this, Emil.
Will you be at FOSDEM, Amir? Next year?
Sure. Of course. Who else is going to drink all the beer then?
See you there then.
Yep.
As per usual.
I think, James, you should go ahead and ask your question.
Really?
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
Adrian, it's probably worth outlining the role of the back-end server, your Silk server, and how that interacts with Blink, because the two work very closely together, don't they?
Yes, it's as I said, because it's a SIP client, and we follow standards as much as we can, because the purpose, the goal is interoperability. That's what's driving our methodology. We could do it differently, but we like interoperability. So for this reason, as I said, if you have a client with a certain feature, you need a correspondent server with the same feature. And Silk server is the mirror of Blink in the server side, meaning all the beyond VoIP capabilities, well, not all, but most of the beyond VoIP capabilities of Blink, they are possible because Silk server provides those features. And again, it's not a punctual task. Silk server alone will not do all the works that SIP infrastructure needs to do. It does partially some of those things. So it's one of those components you need to have, but not the only one. So you have to integrate a regular SIP server with Silk server and other components, and there is no way around it. There is no monolithic, ultimate SIP server. Like, I have to say, XMPP has this beautiful capability. You deploy the server and practically don't have to look at 50 components or an architecture or several servers and all this mess with SIP. And it's very easy to start with an XMPP server and with Jitsi, for instance, and you very quickly can achieve results. If you try with SIP, this is very difficult. Nobody can set up pretty quickly a SIP infrastructure with all these capabilities. Not obvious how to do it. Even if the software is out there, it's just too complicated because there are too many components. But that's our life, and Ole loves complexity because he can teach people how to. There is an ecosystem and a business model around this complexity in SIP inherent to our industry, and people like to keep it like this, and that's life.
Tell you what, I'm so glad you brought up the business model. There's only one thing wrong with Blink Pro and Silk server, and you know what that is, don't you?
Which one?
That one.
Money?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's how much it costs right now.
How much can you get away with? But you know what? If you I don't know, reduce the price by 75%, you would sell 10 times more because it really is good stuff. And you're up against Emil, who just gives the stuff away.
Well, no. My strategy is different. If you compete on price, you can be the cheapest until somebody else comes. But if you go up, very few people can chase you up.
Well, that is true, yeah. And
so I made the reputation being expensive, and it's very easy to protect that rather than protecting the reputation being very cheap, which you can hold for milliseconds.
Yeah, it's a good strategy actually.
Let's say that Blink Pro,
which way everybody else is going, and you go in totally.
You have to finance all these things you can imagine. So for all practical purposes, there is no way you can earn money with just Blink. As we talk about 5 years with several people full time doing this. The actual man hours and effort will never be recovered based on the current business models. Luckily, we have other type of income. But basically, you need a way to support this. It has to be able to sustain itself. Otherwise, even if you're an enthusiastic guy, want to make it and so forth, you must create something that is self-sustainable. Otherwise, it will die. There are many projects that look nice, but then after a while, they just disappear.
Yeah, you're
and
absolutely
the reason they disappear is because there is no foundation under them, no business model, or they cannot survive because of that. That's why we have.
Are you able to say anything about any of your commercial deployments? Because some of them are.
Well, we can't talk about this because we have agreements not to talk about it and so forth. We have several ways of financing this because, as you imagine, it requires resources to have this continuous development for many years with several persons, and you need to finance this. And we combine various types of income, and Blink Pro in the App Store is one of those things that make it in a way that it's self-sustainable and it makes sense to continue developing because there is a stream coming in that pays for certain type of costs, And we know it's a bizarre business model because you have the Linux version and the Windows version completely free, and then you have the Mac version for OS X, which costs money.
Yeah, these Mac users have to be punished.
Exactly, it's that kind of thing. Mac users like to pay for their goodies, whereas if you try to make a paid version on Windows, nobody would pay for it. They will hack it. They will make sure they download it for free somewhere. But the honorable Mac users, they're happy to pay for it. And by the way,
every time.
By the way, we realized that selling through the Mac App Store, it's a complete orthogonal channel to any other of our channels. For instance, we do have Mac version for free. We call it a beta version, which is really the same feature set you can get from the App Store. We just call beta, and just because of this, a lot of people simply don't dare to use it. But the technical guy would just use it just fine. But there are others who don't know, the SIP industry, the mailing list, anything. They just, their way to acquire software is simply by going to the App Store and searching for, let's say, a keyword like VoIP. And those guys have no clue what Blink is, or they just shop around looking for a client that, their SIP provider told them you need a client, and they just go and buy it. And those people would have never downloaded the free version anyway. And vice versa, those people who want not to pay, they can get it. And it's a sort of flexible arrangement.
You know what? I noticed that Anthony Minasala was using the free version in Chicago when he did his dangerous demo. And he was really upset that he didn't win a prize for his dangerous demo. But I said, well, you haven't really got anything dangerous in there. Blink is nowhere near
What demonstration was this? At ClueCon or where?
At ClueCon, yeah. He was doing his stereo 3D WebRTC and interoperating with SIP.
Uh-huh.
It was, well, it's okay, but it wasn't particularly dangerous because Anthony's stuff just worked.
Multi-party conferencing, we did test it together, and they did implement in FreeSwitch the Silk server functionality related to participants, which is also the solution used in Silk server for XMPP interoperability. That standard mentioned by Emil earlier, RFC 4575.
Yeah, 4575.
Yeah. 45. That one is also supported by FreeSwitch. So that would be a second implementation of the server-side capabilities of Blink related to multi-party conferencing for audio, because FreeSwitch doesn't mix chat.
As we have Emil here, it's probably worthwhile mentioning who actually did win dangerous demos. Well, Emil was one of the prize winners, and he did the most amazing demonstration, building a complete Jitsi video bridge installation from scratch in under 4 minutes.
Right. So with Silk server,
would have been an almost perfect demo, James, if you had only brought your phone that was supposed to be part of the demo, right? Which made it very dangerous, relying on your phone, I suppose.
Yeah, it was totally dangerous, but that was an excellent demo. But Adrian, we missed you this year.
Where? In which side of which part of the world did you miss?
ClearCon.
At ClearCon. Oh, in Chicago. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's a bit conventional these days for you, isn't it?
So I have a question. How would Blink connect to Jitsi in video?
Right now, the way to connect, you have, for instance, Jitsi has a service, provides addresses. They have a service, and you can subscribe for user@jit.si, and you download the client. You practically can have multimedia.
I think, however, that Randy is asking a different question. He's asking, and I'd love for you to work with you guys on that. But the question is, how would Blink join a multi-party video call?
Yeah.
Right. We have to look because we have no solution for this. You have a solution for this.
We kind of mentioned this a few minutes ago, and the reason I ask is because we're going to be talking to matrix.org, those people, next week, and we were talking about bridging a bunch of things, and Emil, Matthew asked, well, do they have an STP or do we just call a SIP URI? Well, for audio, we can call a SIP URI or we can call theirs.
Yeah, I'm really interested in working with Emil to see how we can leverage his functionality to somehow be able to bridge to the stuff he made. Why not?
Yeah, I think that the Silk server provides, basically for the outside world, Silk server provides an XMPP multi-user chats, right? So
Yes.
as soon as there's that, you could have half the clients joining in XMPP and the other half joining in SIP.
And WebRTC. And WebRTC. The same.
Sure, but I mean, to me, WebRTC is just a media stack, so it really doesn't matter if you call it out. The question is, what would really be happening on the signaling level? And I think Silk Server can help with that.
Yeah.
It can basically host a video bridge together, or on a different machine. It could service it.
So it is an integration at API level between your bridge and the signaling part of Silk Server, sort of?
Sort of, yeah. It's about translating. You already guys translate Jingo. You've done a great job at that. So it would be translating a few additional elements there, and obviously for Blink the possibility to be able to show several video SSRCs as they arrive together.
Right. This will require some plumbing. We are very early in this process. We just added video now, and all this different SSRCs and all these details. You know, we are using PJ SIP stack. So a lot of things are not there, so you will have to make them. So it's doable, it's interesting, I want it, but God knows how long it will take.
Yep. But you've proved already that you can, that you and your team can get complicated things done and don't think tasks completed. So if anyone can do it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to really this multi-party video stuff. As soon as we do the we want to do the ZRTP part, which is just in Mac now. So we want to add this OTR, and that's another place where we achieve interoperability with your client. We can have encrypted end-to-end messaging between Jitsi using SIP message and Blink. You can have end-to-end OTR encrypted chat session. And same for the audio. For video, do we have video interoperability, Saul, with Jitsi? I don't remember. I haven't seen it working. Saul, are you there? You're muted.
We do. I need to look into. There is one thing which I know is not working right, and then ZRTP-wise, we need to actually. I need to probably ask Emil how they do it with the multi-stream negotiation process. Or we do two separate ones or whatever. So that's still on the works. But the basic video interoperability is actually there. So
that's awesome.
Also, a problem with Silk Server, if it comes to this sort of media, is that right now we mix stuff, and that doesn't scale well. So we have to create a sort of transparent way of streaming in a way that doesn't require the Python code to do something there in that thing, and it requires some re-engineering, I think.
Okay, Emil, I sent you a very important message via email because Thomas from Austria asked about you, and then he apparently quit the IRC. We're about ready to quit also, so I just want to make sure that, and James, you're disqualified from this. And does anybody else have any questions? Where's Carl Fife? Is he on? No, he's not. Okay. So anybody on ZipDX have questions at all? You're welcome to *6, unmute yourselves. Andy has been curiously silent, but he said he wasn't going to be too much participating. Final questions before James? James will do Carl's job. Did we? So we didn't make this comparison with Link, did we? Or did that happen when we were talking? When you were talking about just general SIP capabilities?
Right. So we like to joke that indeed, actually, Link makes what's interesting about Link is that the Microsoft team are pushing this on the market, so it's a very easy, let's say, equivalent or comparison. When people say, "Oh, what does it do?" You can say, "Do you know Link?" And we joke like, there is Blink, a better Link.
Hey.
So it's Microsoft is making this idea of a multimedia client. It's making this known into the enterprise. And this is great because even if our client is multimedia and a lot of people might benefit of it, they just don't know. And then if you have to explain, you lost the case. So let Microsoft explain to them. We sell afterwards.
All right. With that, no final questions. I want to thank you, Adrian, and Saul for participating. We did a little testing. Blink, I've already said, is a client that a client that I've used for a long time when it only just did SIP calls, even in chat. We bridged, and I was telling Saul earlier today, we had 13-hour calls that we bridged in Blink. In other words, the conference was local, as far as I know, in Blink. We were not using a server at that point. And that was pretty impressive stability, really. That says a lot. We did that several times. We had a 13-hour call. We had many, many 5- and 7-hour calls. Remember when the VUC lasted that long? That was
great to hear.
I was married either, because I've been married for a long time. But anyway, it's a very stable client. We appreciate your presence here, guys. And
nice to be here again.
It was great, and as James said, it was really amazing to have so many people involved. We had Ule pop in, Emil, thank you. Emil, you should have been gone a long time ago. I don't know what you're doing.
I'm leaving now. Just wanted to say, looking forward to meeting you at FOSDEM, guys, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Take that lady out, or you're going to lose her, okay? It's time to go. All right, everybody. Hey, Tim, you're back just in time to say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. All right. Now I had a dad.
Don't go away, Tim. Don't go away.
Okay, we're going to be back in just a second with the mature audiences only, but first, this message. Oops, wrong. Wait a minute. Now, I don't have... Oh, yes, I do. Here we go. This message. Hey, that was the bleeding edge of the IP communications and VoIP community. We're at vuc.me on the web. Thanks to simwood.com, who can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is provided by onsip.com. The site at vuc.me is on bluehost.com. We use zipdx.com for our wideband, full-featured conference bridge. And our local rate dial-ins are from voxbone.com. Every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. See you next week.